Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Earth Science. Hopefully you're doing all right. This is the video portion of the assignment that is due on Friday, the 21st. So pay attention, take some notes in your notebooks. We're going to be covering ocean basics today. Last time we talked about the hydrosphere in general. Where water can be found and a little bit about the water cycle. Today we're going to be talking about the ocean. All right, so let's get into it. You will be answering some questions that I will give to you later on and turning those questions, or rather turning in the responses to those questions into Canvas. Okay? Okay, all right. Let's get to it. So what is the ocean? So when you think about the ocean, a lot of times people talk about the oceans, when in reality there is actually only one ocean. It's called the global ocean. It's primarily covered in a body of water, right? The Earth's surface. All of these bodies of water that are connected are the ocean. Okay. It's a continuous stretch of salt water that surrounds all land masses on Earth. And of course, we'll talk about these different oceans here, but we have the Atlantic, the Indian, the Pacific on either sides of this representation here. This is the Southern Ocean, and this is the Arctic Ocean. Okay, so Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Southern, and Arctic. Those are the five major oceans that are a part of the global ocean. All right. Now the Pacific. Here we have a weather satellite image of the Pacific Ocean. You can see North America, South America, you can just barely see the edge of here. And then here's the northern island of New Zealand. And here is the big island of Hawaii. That's it. That's the only land that you can see. And the Pacific Ocean is gigantic. All right, it is the largest and the deepest. Covers more of the Earth's surface than all of the land area put together. All right, I believe that the Pacific Ocean covers something like 43 or 42% of the surface of the Earth. It is humongous. If you have a globe, I want you to check out a globe and just look at the Pacific Ocean and see how much you can cover of the Earth's surface from your point of view with just the Pacific Ocean. If you look at the South Pacific, it's very difficult to see any other land. Okay, it comes from the Latin word pacifico, which means peaceful. The water here is calmer, and it's cooler than the Atlantic Ocean. Cooler in temperature. Okay, and its average depth is 4.3 kilometers, which is pretty nuts when you think about how deep a kilometer would be. A kilometer is 1,000 meters. It's like the distance from here at Da Vinci to the Burger King Chevron gas station. That's a kilometer. Now imagine 4 of those straight down into the water. That's how deep the average depth of the Pacific is. Okay. The Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, or sorry, the Atlantic and the Indian, my bad. The Atlantic and the Indian are the next in terms of, if we're going in size from largest, starting with the Pacific to the smallest. The Atlantic and the Indian are super important. They've been traveled for thousands of years. by trading boats and all sorts of stuff. They're warm, and because of their warmth, and we'll talk about this when we get to weather. Because of their warmth, they create more hurricanes and cyclones, which we will discuss later, but lots of storms in these oceans. All right, here, if you know where this is, then congratulations. This is the southern tip of India. Here's Sri Lanka. This is a picture that was taken in the 60s, actually, by an astronaut looking out the window of the Gemini capsule. Pretty cool. So there's India. We've got the Indian Ocean surrounding India, of course. All right, moving on. The Southern and Arctic Oceans. These oceans are not very big. They're the smallest of the oceans. Whew, I'm tired. Antarctica and Greenland are in these oceans. They often have icebergs. You can see the icebergs here. I don't know how smart this is. I heard a story one time about this boat. You might have heard of it. Made a movie about it. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to be on this ship. Just cruising past some icebergs. Yeah. So the Arctic Ocean is the ocean near the North Pole, and the Southern Ocean, this makes sense, is the one that surrounds Antarctica near the southern portion of the Earth. They are cold, of course. And the ice shelves release these big floating chunks of ice. Okay, so the Southern Ocean and the Arctic Ocean. And we'll talk about those in greater detail when we get to ocean currents and how important those are. All right? Now, here's the questions for you. I want you to take a moment and either just write these down or open up the assignment in Canvas that requires your response and type these down, or just pause the video and take note of where you can find this in terms of the time, because this is not the end. We will keep on going, but here's where the questions are. All right. So we've got 4 questions. I'm not going to stay here for long, so pause the video, write them down, or just write down where you can find them and answer them later. You will be expected to answer all 4 of these questions in the assignment in Canvas. All right, moving on. There are 5 main zones in the ocean depths, okay? The depth zones. We'll be using the light model of ocean depth zones. There's a few different models, but the light model describes each area or each zone by how much light it receives. There are 5 zones in this model: sunlit, twilight, midnight, abyss, and Hadal, or some people say Hadal. And we'll get to these all individually. Again, feel free to pause at any time if I'm going too fast. We're just going to cruise through this, but get these notes down. The sunlit zone, this is 0 to 200 meters under the surface. This is where you're going to find the life, okay, stuff swimming around, as well as other plant-like animals and corals and so forth, right? The reason why we find life here is because of those plant-like organisms. They need light. That light comes through the upper portions of the ocean, gives them photosynthesis, right? They're able to make food for themselves, and other things eat them, and then other things they eat that, right? There's always a bigger fish, to quote a well-known phrase. Now, this is the only place that you're going to ever go if you're going scuba diving. As someone who's been scuba diving, I'll tell you that that's as far down as you want to go. I would not want to even get close to 200 meters in depth. I might go 50, 45, something like that, meters in depth. Deeper than that, it gets a little bit spooky. Okay. Now, if we were to hop in a submarine, we could go a little bit deeper. Let's keep on going. The Twilight Zone, which, if you're familiar with the old show, they may have brought that back. I don't know. The Twilight Zone. A lot of people, you might recognize the theme music. Yeah. Anyway, the Twilight Zone. Not the movie, not the show, not the terrible. What is it? Is it 4 books? Ugh, gosh. Terrifying. Terrifyingly bad. Okay, now, twilight means that it is referring to the sunset or sunrise portion of the day, or like when the sun goes down and you can't see the sun anymore, but the sky is still lit. That's why we call it the Twilight Zone. It's a little bit of light, but it's like the sun has gone down, right? As we go down through these layers, you get more and more pressure as well, because you have water on top of you pushing down on you. Any kind of large living things have to have pressure adapted body plans. You can look up some really fascinating things that live in the Twilight Zone. But again, life below the Sunlit Zone is relatively rare. This picture is not from the Twilight Zone, okay? This is from the Sunlit Zone, but maybe later in the afternoon or something like that when the sun has gone down. Yeah, excuse me. All right, moving on. The Midnight Zone. This is a real living thing. This is a type of animal called a siphonophore, which is kind of a family of animals. Pretty interesting looking thing. All right, now 1,000 to 4,000 meters below the surface, there's no light here. If you were to visit this area of the ocean, you would not be able to tell which way it was up or down because you're floating in water. You would not be able to see any light, and except for maybe something that illuminates itself, bioluminescence. But again, very rare living things are very rare here. But some of them glow. But it's dark, it's cold, there's a lot of pressure. It's scary. I do not want to go. Do not want to go to this location of the ocean. Isn't this cool? It looks like in my opinion, it looks like a firework that spirals up and then starts shooting stuff off, like a long exposure of a firework. Okay, most of the ocean floor can be found in this zone, about 4,000 meters down, 4 kilometers. Moving on, again, pause to take notes if you need. The Abyssal Zone, the abyss. 4,000 to 6,000 meters down, there's no light. You only really can find these kinds of depths in the ocean trenches. Life is rare because of the pressure and cold temperature, but there is still life here. The Abyssal Zone. Okay. Beautiful sea jelly here. It's not a jellyfish, because I ain't no fish. Stop calling them jellyfish. They're sea jellies. And yes, I know that is annoying that I have to be specific like that, but That's who am I? Who am I? You guys know me. Okay, moving on. And final, the Hadal Zone or Hadal Zone. This is the deepest portion of the ocean. 6,000 to 11,000 meters. That is not a typo. 11,000 meters. 11 kilometers. This pressure crushes submarines. You have to have very, very specialized submarines to go down in these areas. There are trenches that are 2 or 3 times deeper than most of the tallest mountains on Earth. I believe that 2.5 Mount Everests can fit inside of the deepest trenches. The deepest trench in the world is the Mariana Trench. It's off the east coast of the Philippines. That's the trench. It's really deep. And then the deepest point on Earth is called the Challenger Deep. It is just about 11 kilometers even in depth. It is super, super deep. It's crazy. Okay, in the Mariana Trench, if we were, I'm going to pull up a map for you here so that we can look at it. This is, you might recognize this image here. This is, of course, the Titanic. Or at least what's left of it, right? Let me just pull this over here. Mariana Trench, oh boy. North of Papua New Guinea, off the east coast of the Philippines. You can see it here. There's this subduction zone where the Pacific Oceanic plate is being subducted underneath the Philippine plate, which is right here, going down in. Okay, pretty cool. All right, now the Hadal Zone is one of those things again that is named after the Greek underworld. So after Hades. All right, that should be enough information to answer those 4 questions. Go back and find those questions if you need, or answer them from what you wrote down. Submit those answers on Canvas, and I will talk to you guys next week. Goodbye.